What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 48 of AskGSM here today for Wednesday, June 29, 2022. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week so far. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. I think I mentioned this last week, but we got two interviews coming up here on the channel. The Undertaker is coming still. That came out wrong. But the Undertaker interview was supposed to drop yesterday here on the channel. We actually moved it to next week to coincide with the return of WWE Legends biography on A&E. Legends WWE, or biography WWE Legends rather, is the exact phrasing of the show. That's coming back with an all-new episode on The Undertaker next weekend. Not this weekend, but the Sunday after this one. So Sunday, July 10th is when that show's coming back. Therefore, my interview with Taker is dropping sometime next week. Not sure if it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Not sure yet, but it will be dropping sometime this week. This week is my interview with Smackdown superstar Lacey Evans. Now, we were supposed to talk to Theory. The schedules didn't work out. He has to travel on the day we were supposed to do the interview. So I got Lacey Evans instead. And that's, I think, dropping for sure on Friday. So keep an eye out for that ahead of Money in the Bank on Saturday, and many other interviews set to drop in the weeks to come as well. So let's get right into it. Micah Does It from YouTube, their first question was, with Christian Cage's heel turn now being on TV, do you think this could propel him to the AEW World title or maybe the TNT title? I don't think the World Championship. I loved Christian's promo last week, and I feel like that kind of got lost in the shuffle and all the hype for Forbidden Door this past weekend. It had nothing to do with that pay-per-view. Christian wasn't on that pay-per-view, but it was a fantastic promo, and quite honestly, and he's going to be on the show again tonight, the ending of that promo left me more intrigued for what's to come in that storyline, and we'll find out what's next tonight with the whole, like, walking away with Luchasaurus. What did he say to him? What's the whole Marco Stunt thing about? What happened with him in storyline, blah, blah, blah. So I'm more intrigued to find out what's going to happen with that than probably anything else going on in AEW right now. And there's a lot of cool stuff, like I'm looking forward to Blood and Guts, but honestly, I think I'm more excited for what Christian has to say tonight to follow up on what he said last week than Blood and Guts itself. But that's just because I feel like we already kind of got Blood and Guts with Anarchy in the Arena last month at Double or Nothing. But anyway, I don't think it's going to take him to the world title. I don't think it has to. If he does challenge for the World Championship, again, not to say it won't happen, but it would probably be on TV. It could be on pay-per-view, but he already got his pay-per-view main event championship match, and a lot of people weren't exactly happy with it going in, myself included, because I thought Hangman Adam Page was the perfect person to be facing Kenny Omega at All Out. Granted, that wasn't the company's fault. Page had a kid, and he had to take some time off, and he came back in October, challenged for it Full Gear, won the championship there. But they made the most of a bad situation. They went in there, had a great match, and Christian did a great job, and he played his role well, put over Kenny, and that was it for him in the World Championship picture. And we really haven't seen a hell of a whole lot of him in the ring since. That is the company's fault, because they kind of relegated him to manager duty alongside Jurassic Express, and thankfully we're finally moving away from that. They turned him heel finally, probably 3 or 4 months too late, but better late than ever, I guess. So I don't think he needs to be in the World Championship picture. They have already such a stacked roster, even more so now than they did even a year ago when he was competing for the World Championship. I don't think they need Christian in the top title picture. The TNT title, though, I would have no issue with that whatsoever. Him either challenging for it or even let alone winning it. If Christian is going to be a great heel, as great of a heel as he was 11 years ago in 2011, and he's always been a great heel throughout his career. Early 2000s, mid 2000s, turning heel in 2011, even turning heel again before he retired in 2014. He was doing some great heel work then as well. I mean, a lot of people forget about that in like the final few months of his in-ring career. It was probably only about a month or two, but it was still a great little mini heel run we were getting from him right before he had his last match in WWE. I think we could definitely see Christian as a TNT champion in AEW. I think that'd be a great spot for him. He can have some great matches, cut great promos, put more people over. I don't see why not, and honestly, I would like to see it. I would like to see gold around Christian's waist, if only one more time. The tag titles probably aren't happening. I don't think that's really necessary, but the TNT title, I mean, it's so fucking useless at this point, I don't see why not. So, Now, maybe Wardlow wins it, and then at some point down the road, Christian can beat Wardlow for it by cheating or whatever, so I would have no issue with that whatsoever. His second question, if you had to choose 5 wrestlers from WWE and 5 wrestlers from AEW that aren't being used correctly, who do you think could go to the opposite company and become a big star for those companies? For example, these could be wrestlers that are in the back and not being used correctly, i.e. Brian Cage in AEW and Robert Roode in WWE. Those are 2 good examples. The problem is that Robert Roode at this point is like 40-something years old. I do not think if you were to go to AEW tomorrow, he doesn't even exactly fit AEW style. One, I'm not even really sure they would hire him. If he were to get fired by WWE tomorrow, which honestly might be coming soon, I think it's just a lot more likely he would go back to Impact, a la Eric Young, who's one of his closest friends, and Eric Young went back to Impact. He's doing great work right now, just headline Slammiversary, probably end his career there. And the same goes for Brian Cage. With the way NXT 2.0 is, I don't see them using Brian Cage correctly in NXT or even on the main roster at this point. It kind of feels like a lot of the buzz around Brian Cage has kind of faded away in the last year with how they haven't really booked him on AEW television. So those aren't 2 people that I would have switch companies. Chad Gable would be great to see what he could do in AEW. I mean, the problem with having people switch companies is that how far are they actually going to go? They continue to hire more and more people by the week. We just saw the AEW debut of Claudio Castagnoli at Forbidden Door on Sunday, the former Cesaro. I mean, if they were to bring in 5 people from AEW, or rather WWE into AEW, how often would they actually get used in this current climate of the company, with a lot of other people still struggling to get TV time? But in a perfect world, I would say Dolph, but does anyone even really give a fuck at this point if Dolph were to leave and go elsewhere? It would be interesting to see him in a different landscape, but it's not like he would light the world on fire, reinvent himself, and he probably would, but it's not like he's a lot older now, and it's been so long. Like, at least when John Morrison left WWE years ago, he was still relatively young. He'd only been in WWE for like 8 years, maybe 9 years, but closer to probably 7 or 8 years. Dolph has been there for like 15, 16, 17 years. And, I mean, a lot of people, Cesaro was in WWE for 10 years, and he could do a lot of good in AEW. But, I don't know, I just don't really see Dolph leaving and lighting the world on fire. But, you know, I can't really come up with 5 people from each company. In AEW, I could tell you a couple. You said become a big star. You said not being used correctly. That is the key there. Because I was going to say a Wardlow, for example. I think a Wardlow could definitely go to WWE and make them a lot of money. Make himself a lot of money. I think he'd be a big star over there if they used him correctly. But you said not being used correctly. Wardlow is currently a star in AEW, so that's not a great example. 3 or 4 other people I thought of immediately off the bat in AEW. Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs. I think both of those guys could go to WWE and do well. Not like guaranteed. No one is guaranteed to thrive in WWE because there's a much bigger chance for a success or failure. They have a lot less stars right now than AEW does. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. It's a weird thing in WWE right now where just because they don't have the star power doesn't mean if they were to bring someone in, they would automatically get pushed to the moon. That's just not how WWE works, unfortunately. But I do think Starks, with his charisma, size it's not exactly to his advantage, but he does have charisma. He can go in the ring. The guy can talk. I think he would be a great fit for the former NXT, but even on the main roster, I think he'd be a great mid-card competitor. And could he get farther than that? Maybe. But, yeah, I don't know. I think Ricky Starks is great. Powerhouse Hobbs does have size on his side. You don't even have to bring them in together, because obviously they wouldn't have Taz, so what would be the connection there? But Hobbs, I think, has improved immensely in the last 2 years since I first saw him lose to Orange Cassidy on Dark 2 years ago in like fucking 8 seconds. I will never get over that. And then he lost in the rematch to Cassidy about like 8 months ago on Rampage. They had a rematch on Rampage, and he lost that too. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And Orange Cassidy, I think, was hurt too. Maybe not, but even still. Anyway, I think Powerhouse Hobbs could go to WWE and do well. Those are 2 right off the bat. I also think of Anna Jay and Preston 10 Vance. Number 10, whatever you want to call him. Anna Jay, I kind of feel like has hit a ceiling in AEW. I mean, she is still improving, but I just don't really see her getting beyond a certain level there. She's already gone for the top championships multiple times. She's just not that good currently, and I'm not sure how much better she'll get working squash matches on, on Dark and whatever. It's weird because AEW is a lot of experienced people and a lot of people who still need development and experience that don't really have the time to get that because their roster is so big. Whereas in NXT, they are putting a lot of inexperienced people on TV, including Level Up, and there's some people on Level Up that are just fucking terrible. Like, why would you even put those people on the show? But it's not like anyone's watching it anyway, aside from me. Anna Jay, I feel like in NXT right now, could do really well for herself. I mean, the NXT women's division could use some more people like her, and I think she'd be I say people like her, but they could just use more talented women in general. They have a lot of talented women as it is right now, but they haven't exactly replenished the pot from when they let go of so many people in the last year or two. So bringing in Anna Jay and pushing her to the top of that division, maybe even at some point being NXT Women's Champion, I think would be a better fit for her than what they're doing with her right now in AEW. And then for number 10, the Dark Order stuff has ran its course. I just saw last night that Alan Five Angels is likely done with AEW after his contract expired. The group, it's just hard to give a fuck about them at this point. They already lost Stu Grayson. Colt Cabana hasn't been around in months. I mean, where are we going with this thing? Preston Ten Vance, I am shocked they haven't already unmasked him. And he's appeared unmasked on the Cody Rhodes reality show on TNT before. He's not a bad-looking guy. And he's got size to him. We see his body on the show. I mean, they're not covering his physique. But still, it surprises me they haven't tried to take off the mask. And maybe he'll come off as generic and it won't work. But the mask is such a fucking career killer. For someone like him anyway, who could definitely take off the mask and do well for himself. He screams like someone that could be in NXT right now and get a push right off the bat. They hire a lot of generic-looking wrestlers, but he's in very good shape. He's a bigger guy. He knows how to work. He's had some high-profile matches on Dynamite in the last year or so. So why not give him a chance? So those are a few people off the bat in AEW I think could do well in WWE. The other way around I mentioned, probably not Dolph. Chad Gable in a perfect world would be amazing unleashed in AEW. I just don't really see that happening. Looking at the roster real quick, I mean, the problem with saying anyone from there's a lot of people in WWE that I think would be cool in AEW, but like a Kevin Owens, for example, but it's not like he's not being used correctly. You know what I mean? Looking at the roster right now, Dominic Dijakovic, again, in the perfect world in the current T-Bar. The problem with that is that I just don't see him ever escaping Dark. They might do the one-off Keith Lee match or whatever, but would he ever really get the time of day in AEW with the roster they already have? Probably not. Without a brand split or any form of like a developmental system or whatever, I mean, he's fucked. He's fucked. So, again, in a perfect world, him in AEW would be great. Looking at the roster now, again, Ciampa, not really doing much in WWE, but would he really do that much more in AEW? I will say, him in AEW and Johnny Gargano in a tag team would probably be the best bet. Gargano on his own has a more of a chance of success in AEW than Ciampa does. But if you put them as a tag team, not that they would win the tag team titles within a month, but I think them and FTR would be fucking amazing. So I would love to see that. I don't think it's going to happen, but hey, maybe Gargano is waiting until Ciampa's contract is up and they can go to AEW together. Who knows? Honestly, I feel like that would be a much better use of those two than bringing them in on their own, at least in my opinion. Looking at the SmackDown roster, Pete Dunne is kind of just where he is right now. I don't know. There's really no one else that screams to me, oh, they should be in AEW right now. They kind of got rid of a lot of those people already. Like Max Dupree, the former LA Knight, Eli Drake. I feel like he would have been a perfect fit for AEW years ago. He actually turned them down, I think, to either stay with Impact or to go to the NWA, and then he went to WWE instead. I don't know. He probably saw the writing on the wall in AEW and thought to himself, they probably wouldn't use me correctly. So he might be better off in WWE at this point, even though he's a glorified manager for a bunch of models, which is, the gimmick is going nowhere. I don't know, there's really not a lot of other people I would say, they're a Ricochet, I guess, too. But again, they have so many high flyers as it is in AEW. How far would Ricochet really go in an AEW is the question. I mean, he is just beyond damaged goods in WWE. It's impossible to care about the guy. A fresh coat of paint in AEW would be great. But again, how far is he actually going to go? Is he going to form a fucking tag team with Dante Martin and appear on Dark every week? Like, who gives a shit? But, I don't know. I think there's more of a chance of the people that I mentioned from AEW going to WWE and doing well for themselves than the people from WWE and going to AEW and doing well for themselves because they already have a stacked roster and don't really have that much room left, if any room left, to bring in new people and push them at the level they deserve to be pushed at. So, good question. Let's go to the next one here. No L from Facebook. Top 5 John Cena promos of all time. I don't really have a select top 5. I mean, any of the promos with The Rock I thought were great. In the lead up to WrestleMania 28, and specifically 28, though there was that one great promo he cut on Rock, it was the week after Rock came back. This is probably one of my favorite. You said top 5 John Cena promos. I'm just going off of favorite and not best. I don't remember all the promos. But the John Cena promos that stick out to me, one was the one, like I said, a week after Rock returned in 2011. He kind of brought back the Dr. Thugonomics John Cena. And this was before I started rapping a year later on Raw in 2012 and before I came back as the Dr. Thugonomics in 2019. He did it for the first time in many years in 2011, and it was a great fucking promo. It was like, oh, that Blow Me promo or whatever it was. I will still never forget that 11 years later. It was such a great promo. That would probably be one of, if not my favorite John Cena promo. The promos he cut on The Rock, again, leading into WrestleMania 28, but specifically 29. The 29 match was significantly worse than the 28 one, which I actually liked. The 29 build I thought was better, though. Cena was far more serious. Rock was far more serious to an extent. I mean, Rock was still doing Rock concerts, but Cena was desperate to beat The Rock at WrestleMania. And he said as much in those promos. And it was great mic work, and I really enjoyed the build, and the match fell flat, and it was not good. Even a decade later, I still do not like that WrestleMania 29 match, but still, the build I thought was very well done. I'm trying to think. Some of the promos on Brock, I remember he had a great in-ring promo with Paul Heyman. I think it was either before SummerSlam 2014, but more specifically before Night of Champions in 2014. They had a great promo that left people thinking, oh, he might turn heel. He might turn heel. He didn't turn heel. He's never going to turn heel again. But I thought that was a great segment, though, where Cena kind of played into the whole, rise above the hate and everything else. So I remember that promo being really good with Heyman from 2014. Any of the promos with AJ Styles, those were really good. From the summer of 2016, right before the SummerSlam match, and then right before the Rumble as well in 2017. Those Cena promos were great. The Roman Reigns ones from 2017 and from 2021, I don't think they'll ever top their 2020, their 2017 promo. The promos last year leading into SummerSlam were great. Specifically in the Go Home show, that was a pretty good promo. But the one I always go back to is that first contract signing altercation between Roman and Cena on Raw. I think they still have the full thing unedited on their YouTube channel from 5 years ago. That was great stuff. And Roman didn't really have a rebuttal for a lot of what Cena had to say. And Roman now would be, actually we saw, Roman's promos now are far better than they were 4 or 5 years ago. That's probably another one of my favorite Cena promos. He really forced Roman to come on to his level in 2017. From before that, from when I first started watching, I can't really think of any from 2008, 2009, 2010. Some of the promos during that Nexus period were pretty good. I don't remember anyone in particular. Probably some promos from his time before ECW One Night Stand. I'd have to imagine. I don't really remember. I wasn't watching Raw back then, but I'm sure there's a promo from that period people would remember as being a great John Cena promo. But yeah, those are some of my favorite John Cena promos. I'm sure there's plenty more from the years, and anytime he's come back since 2015, he's always done great mic work, and it's honestly improved over the years because he used to make poop jokes and all this other shit. He's really toned down on that over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, which is great, and really honed in on the serious stuff. I think that's fantastic, and he's really delivered some of the best promos of his career in that time. Their next question here. Thoughts on all the injuries that happened at Forbidden Door? There were quite a few. I think Dax Harwood actually, I saw this morning, confirmed the separated shoulder that he suffered at that show. I thought that was a work, but I guess not. I guess that was real. Unless he's really working us, but it seems like it was a real injury, which is pretty fucked. Adam Cole got concussed, and I think there was other injuries as well. So, man, from all the injuries from prior to the pay-per-view to at the pay-per-view itself, and it's not even just an AEW thing, because there's a lot of injuries right now in WWE as well. I don't know if it's just bad luck or people are going too hard or whatever, but man, we have a lot of fucking injuries right now, specifically in AEW and other people just working hurt. Man, it's amazing. For a company, for a roster that really didn't have a lot of injured people 6 months ago, There's a lot of people out hurt and working not working due to being injured at the moment. It's pretty crazy. So hopefully everyone recovers well soon and we see them back in the ring before long. Justin Kate from Facebook, their first question was, should the Gun Club officially embrace the nickname Ass Boy since it's so over with the crowd? I think it's actually funnier that they continue to rebel against it, because Max Caster and Anthony Bowens will say it, and the people, why they're so behind it is because the Ass Boys or Gun Club or whatever, they don't like it. So no, I do not think they should call themselves the Ass Boys. I think to embrace it and to call themselves that instead of the Gun Club would be fucking dumb. I think it's honestly a lot funnier if they continue to rebel against it and Danhausen kind of bust their balls about it and all this other shit. I mean, the gimmick is so stupid, but listen, it's over. And the Max Caster, Anthony Bowens act is so acclaimed, they're just so great and they're so over. And Gun Club are really reaping the benefits of that, really. I mean, you are hearing those reactions, and without the acclaim, they probably would not be nearly as over as they are right now alongside those guys. So, I don't mind if they continue to do it, but to embrace it, I think would be dumb. It would kind of take away the joke part of it. Hey, listen, if you want to get heat, I guess. If you want to get heat, then do that, but I think it's not going to lead to heat. It's going to lead to people not caring. So, no, continue to rebel against it and ride that wave for as long as it can. His second question, which character of Eddie Edwards has been your favorite and why? I don't know. I'm liking Eddie Edwards now as a heel in Honor No More. Probably just classic Eddie Edwards. I was never a big... I mean, he really did up his character work when he did the tweener heel stuff, when he, almost destroyed Sami Callihan several years ago with the eye thing, and then he went after Tommy Dreamer. I think that was 2018 when he was losing his mind. That wasn't exactly my favorite version of Eddie, but it was compelling character work, I guess. I don't know, just old face of TNA Eddie Edwards or face of Impact, fighting for the, for the love of Impact or whatever. I don't know. I don't really have a favorite stage of Eddie Edwards' career, a favorite character that he's done. Though I am enjoying his current work as part of Honor No More. I think he's doing a really good job as a heel in that group. His third question, do you think with the amount of talent being signed to AEW that Tony Khan would want to split the roster? I've always been against the idea of doing anything resembling a brand split with AEW just because we already have it in WWE. And it soured a lot of people on the idea because WWE has never really done it 100% well. I mean, nothing will ever be perfect, but WWE just gives up on shit within fucking a mere matter of months. And this latest brand split is no exception. Like, they'll do it, they won't do it. It's just a joke at this point. AEW, though, I think Tony Khan would do it accurately because the guy's a sports guy and he's far more organized than the WWE is as far as that sort of shit goes. And again, AEW isn't perfect. They have their fair share of problems. But I feel like if anyone were to do a brand split correctly, it would be AEW. And they have the talent to do it because they have so many fucking people on their roster. I just don't really know if that's something people want to see. I think the biggest benefit of doing a brand split is that you separate talent so you're not seeing the same matches all the time. But the thing is that we're already not getting the same matches all the time. Like, they're already doing a good job of keeping things fresh. The only real benefit to doing a brand split, I think at this point, would be to encourage or rather ensure that more people get more TV time. The thing is, though, is that we're really not getting the same people on Dynamite and Rampage every week. First of all, Rampage is not nearly as established as SmackDown was when they introduced the brand split in 2002. SmackDown had obviously far more ratings, but that's just because it was 20 years ago. But Rampage's ratings are in the fucking toilet. Would they be better with a brand split? I don't know. At Friday night on in a death slot on at 10 p.m. on a Friday Eastern time, I just don't see that being a good idea. If it was more even, like with SmackDown, like it was 8 p.m. on a Friday, which they would never do to run opposite of SmackDown, and they can't really do any other day of the week. You can't have... What I don't like about the WWE brand split, among other things, is the fact that Raw is 3 hours and SmackDown is 2. On the surface, it makes SmackDown seem inferior, although they do have a smaller roster, and it typically has been the better show in the past, but just not recently. Rampage is a completely forgettable show. Could it be more must-see with a brand split? Yeah, but again, an hour show on a Friday night. I mean, how many fucking people are you going to have on a roster for a show that's only an hour long? It's one thing to have a show that's 2 hours like Smackdown and a show that like Raw that's 3 hours. I'm not counting Dark and Elevation. I don't give a fuck about that stuff because that stuff doesn't even really count. You can't really do a brand split with that amount of people, with that few hours of television and relegate certain people to just a Friday night show and relegate other people to just Dynamite. Dynamite is their flagship show. If you're not appearing on Dynamite, no one will even know you exist. I mean, the people that only ever really appear on Rampage, a lot of people don't even know that they're even still doing stuff because they don't really watch Rampage because no one gives a fuck about the show. It's not an important show. So I just don't really think that's a good idea under the current circumstances. With the big enough, the roster size would definitely require a brand split. I would agree with that. Rampage is just not important enough of a show to do a brand split with because Dynamite's ratings are just so far better than Rampage's. For the most part, not by like millions of people, but still, Dynamite is far more established. I just don't really think it would work out for right now. I don't. You would have to make Rampage again on even playing field as Dynamite. Put it on a primetime slot on a certain day. But the problem with that is that they're not going to do that because they have other sports that air on TBS and TNT. So I just don't really see that happening, unfortunately. Let's see. Next question from At The Line Drive from Twitter. Their first question was, or their only question, was Rhea Ripley getting injured and thus at a Judgment Day's presentation a blessing in disguise? No, I would argue it was bad and it was just no blessing in disguise there, I would say. Rhea Ripley was doing great stuff as part of that group, in my opinion. You may disagree, but I loved her as part of that group, being a heel and whatnot. Being out of the presentation, I mean, a blessing in disguise in what way? In the way that we might be getting supernatural shit soon with them and she won't have to be saddled with that garbage if she's not around, then yeah, but we haven't seen that yet. And right before she got hurt, honestly, on that 1 week where they had the group and Rhea was there and Finn Balor was the one that was there in place of Edge, Rhea was the one that was being kind of focused on as the leader of that group. So if anything, the group is far worse off. Rhea's not on TV. She loses that momentum. So no, I don't really think anyone benefits from this right now. Maybe in a week or two they'll start doing the supernatural shit and I'll say, okay, maybe she was smart. Not smart, she didn't get herself intentionally injured, but maybe she's better off not being on TV right now. This is what they're going to do with the group. But no, the group was doing well. I didn't like the shift and the change in from Edge to Finn. I was not a fan of that personally. But still, Rhea, it looked like she was being positioned as the leader of that group. If you just watch that segment they did with them and Bianca Belair a week after Rhea Ripley became number one contender. I think it was 8 days after Hell in the Cell. So no, I don't think it's a blessing in disguise. They were on fucking Main Event last week, was the Judgment Day. Thankfully, they were back on Raw this week in a backstage segment, granted, but they'll be on Raw next week in a match with the Mysterios. The same match they did on Main Event, actually. They're just doing it on Raw this time. I watched the match. I watched Main Event. I'm one of 5 people that watches Main Event every week. But no, I don't really think anyone really benefits, and it's not exactly a blessing in disguise for Rhea getting hurt and being out of Judgment Day, because the group has had some weird luck so far, from Edge being booted to then Rhea getting hurt and all this other supernatural shit they've teased doing. It's just weird. The group is not exactly off to a hot start right now. I mean, it already started months ago, but you know what I mean. So we'll see Rhea when she gets back. I'm sure she'll be fine. Hopefully the group does not suffer too much in the meantime while she's gone and in her absence. At Iwagu91, their first question, who do you see winning Blood and Guts tomorrow, or that being tonight? It's definitely got to be Blackpool Combat Club, because the babyfaces lost, remember. I mean, Blackpool Combat Club and Kingston and Santana Ortiz, but I honestly forget they're even in the fucking match. But, yeah, it was the babyfaces that lost to Double or Nothing. And then the heels won again at Forbidden Door. I mean, they did this last year, except I think it was the other way around. They did Blood and Guts first and then Stadium Stampede, but they had the Pinnacle win Blood and Guts and then lose the next match. I think one of these times it would be nice if someone went like 2-0 against the other faction and it wasn't split wins with fucking 50-50 booking. But whatever. Blackpool Combat Club needs the momentum. They're the hot act right now. I don't give a fuck about the Jericho Appreciation Society shit. They can have them win all they want. I just don't care. But yeah, this is definitely a win for the babyfaces. If they don't win tonight in Claudio's not in-ring debut, but his Dynamite debut, I would be shocked. His second question, your thoughts on Forbidden Door, and what did you think was the match of the night? Definitely Orange Cassidy and Will Ospreay, something I did not think I would say, because I figured it would be a good match, a fun match, despite Orange Cassidy not being my ideal opponent for Will Ospreay, but they went in there and fucking killed it. The 4-way was good. The main event was good. Honestly, even the opener exceeded my expectations too. I thought that was a great match. Jericho, Suzuki, and Guevara was the other person, versus Shota and Wheeler Yuta and Eddie Kingston. I thought that was a great 6-man tag team match. I really enjoyed that, much more than I thought I would. So I would definitely go with Ospreay and Cassidy, and I thought the overall pay-per-view was great, and people calling it an early contender for Show of the Year are not wrong. I think it was definitely better than Double or Nothing. I'd really have to compare it to Revolution, because I thought Revolution was a great show. But this might have been better. The crowd was uber hot, and I don't know, I didn't really have any issues with much of what they did, aside from the finish for the 4-way, but that wasn't really something they could have avoided because Cole got hurt, legit. That wasn't exactly their fault. But no weird booking decisions. We got some cool surprises, cool moments, great matches, great action, a hot crowd. How much more can you really ask for? Next question from at Iwagu91. Would you have liked to see Brock Lesnar and Batista feud with each other? Yeah, that was honestly a feud. They couldn't have done it initially because Brock left in 2004 and Batista didn't really get going until after Brock left. Evolution started up in 2003. But by that point, Brock was on Smackdown for the entire time, so he never crossed paths with Batista. And even if they did the match, I think they had a match in OVW years before that, but as far as a mainstream match, yeah, Brock left in 2004, so they never had a chance, and Batista didn't break out until 2005. So Batista kind of took that Brock role for a while, specifically on Smackdown, when Brock left in 2004. That Brock Goldberg slot that they left behind when they left at WrestleMania 20. But yeah, they never really had a chance to do that match because when Brock came back in 2012, Batista had already left in 2010. And the only time they could have done the match was in 2014. Batista was back for a short time. What they did with Batista, they've completely fucked up his run. But they teased the match at one point. I remember that one segment on Raw, and I'm sure I talked about it here on the show at the time, but they did that one segment on Raw in, I think, February of 2014. It was right after the Rumble, maybe after Elimination Chamber, I don't remember. But Orton was in the ring as the world champion. Brock came out looking for a title shot. And Batista also came out, I think, having just won the Rumble. And I'm thinking, holy shit, this would be fucking great. We did get a 3-way at WrestleMania, it just wasn't with Brock, it was with Bryan. And that was a fantastic match as well. But that was the closest I think we ever came to Brock and Batista sharing the ring or having a match or whatever. And then years later when Batista was doing interviews on his time outside of the company, he always said if he wanted to come back, it would be for a match with Triple H, which they did, and he retired him, and it went down exactly as he wanted to, which is great for him. But he even Jericho said, oh, what about Brock? Is that a match that interests you? And Batista said no. He said, honestly, I don't want to go in there and get hurt. I'm old now. He just never really seemed high on the idea of doing that match. Maybe at that point, years earlier, maybe. I always thought a Brock-Batista match in 2012, 2013 would have been cool. But after 2014, when they didn't do it, it just seemed like Batista was not interested. And we never got around to getting it, so. But the match would have been cool, though, at a certain point. That would have been a great match to do, for sure. Maybe it would have ended up being a bad match. But I think on paper, it looked like it would have been a real attraction, for sure. Let's see. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine, and on YouTube, check out his show, Real Honesty with John Ritland. He does amazing work. His first question was, first WWE moves Money in the Bank out of Allegiant Stadium. Now they can't even finalize all the participants before the week of the show. What is going on in that company? I think we all know the question to that. They never know what the fuck is going on. I will give them, listen, the Money in the Bank pay-per-view leaving Allegiant Stadium is embarrassing for sure. I don't think it was a smart idea to... They really should have thought, okay, we're probably not going to fill a fucking 70,000 person stadium. And I'm not even really sure that was the plan, but they didn't even get close. If they had 25,000 people in there, maybe 30, they probably would have made it work. But they weren't even close to that, I don't think. And now they had to go down to a significantly smaller arena. I think the T-Mobile Arena, if I'm not mistaken, or the MGM Grand, I don't remember, in Vegas. But, yeah, so that is embarrassing. As far as finalizing the spots right before the pay-per-view, that doesn't bother me. And I've said this before, I thought it was weird that the week after Hell in a Cell, we had no qualifiers, at least on Raw. I talked about that with RJ at the time. And he made a good point in saying that maybe it's for the best that we didn't get the qualifiers on night 1 on Raw, because usually when they have everyone qualify right off the bat, which I like when they kind of set the stage early, and they always change the lineups. This is not a new thing. They change the lineups for who's in the match and taking people out of the match. They do this every fucking year with the men and the women. This is not a new concept. But he had said at the time, maybe it was a blessing they didn't do it so early, because usually when they do that sort of stuff early and we know everyone that's going to be in the ladder matches, we get weeks of pointless multi-person matches and fatal four-ways and tag teams, and none of it really means anything because they're all going to be opponents at the pay-per-view anyway, because that's where they're really fighting for something meaningful. The four-ways mean nothing. Oh, what, to build momentum? Who gives a fuck? I mean, I like the matches, but as far as how much they really mean, they mean nothing. We have that happen every single year. We didn't really have that this year. Sure, we had Liv Morgan versus Alexa Bliss on Raw before they face off at the pay-per-view, but other than that, we really haven't gotten any four-ways or major tag team matches, and with the combatants of the ladder matches facing each other, which I like. I think that's, and I know they're all going to be on the show on Smackdown this week, which is interesting. I don't know what they have in store for that. But yeah, I guess we'll see as far as what they're thinking with that and what they're going to be, what they have in store for that show. But no, that doesn't really bother me. And as far as like the final spot for the men, they finalized the women on Monday. There's one more spot for the men, and that would have gone to Ezekiel or Elias or whatever, or Kevin Owens, but Kevin Owens had to miss the show. So instead of doing a different qualifier and giving that spot to someone else, they just left it open. I'm hoping that Kevin Owens is good to go for SmackDown and they can do it on that show, because I do want Kevin Owens in Money in the Bank. I don't think he's winning, but I think he deserves to be in that match. If Kevin Owens isn't back, they might just give that spot to someone else, do another qualifier with someone else on SmackDown, just throw someone random in there. That wouldn't surprise me. Maybe Gunther or someone like that, or a Kofi or whatever. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But yeah, the spot's being finalized up until the day of. Not the day of, or maybe, I guess, who knows. But up until like the day before on SmackDown, some of that wasn't exactly their fault, and it has kept the shows interesting in recent weeks, in that we've gotten qualifiers in every Raw and SmackDown for the most part. So they're keeping it interesting, which I like. Next question from John as well. So with Forbidden Door in the rear view mirror, would you say it was a success, especially despite all the injuries and match changes going into the pay-per-view? I would. I think all things considered, it was a success. From what I heard, even from like a financial standpoint, they sold a lot of pay-per-view buys. They had a lot of buys on pay-per-view for that show. They had a great gate for that show. It was at the United Center, not even the Now Arena in Chicago, but rather the United Center, which fits, 3 or 4 times the amount of people? Almost 20,000 people, 16,000 people, I think, were there on Sunday. A great gate. Made a lot of money off the gate for that show. Yeah, I think they made millions of dollars off that show, so I think it was a success. The matches were great. The booking was well done. I didn't really have an issue with a lot of people that won and whatever. Was it the perfect pay-per-view? I don't think so. And the build sucked, like you said, and all the injuries, and a lot of people got hurt beforehand and even at the show itself, but it still ended up being a fantastic show with a lot of great matches. A lot of great matches that will be in the conversation for best matches all year in AEW and just in general. So, yeah, definitely a 2 thumbs up success for Forbidden Door, and I hope it was such a success that we get a sequel next year. And at that point, more people are healthy, and we can get Kenny Omega on the show, and Bryan Danielson on the show, and CM Punk on the show. Those are really the people I want to see competing against the New Japan talent. That is what I came to see, and even without them, the show is still fantastic. So I can't complain. Definitely a resounding success for Forbidden Door on Sunday, absolutely. His next question, is there a chance WWE pulls a shock at Money in the Bank and has Carmela win the Raw Women's Championship? I mean, there's always a chance. I mean, I could say, there's no chance she's winning. There's always a chance. WWE can do whatever they want. Is it likely that she wins? No. I think Carmella is just a filler opponent. I thought Bianca getting the better of her on Raw this week was a little weird. Unless they I don't know, because Rhea Ripley was supposed to get the shot. She had a chance of winning. If they were going to go with a title change regardless, would they really put Carmella in there? I don't know. I don't really think Carmella needs the Raw Women's Championship, personally. It's a fine filler feud just because they only had a 2-week build. Anyone else would have been... I would rather see a longer build for pretty much any other match, personally. And, yeah, it's just another person for Bianca to beat. Even though she's already beat her a bunch of times before, whatever. No, I don't think Carmella wins. Is there a chance? Sure, but it's minuscule, I think. I think it's far more likely Carmella walks out a loser, and Bianca's still the Raw Women's Champion heading into SummerSlam, where she will be in her home state of Nashville, or not home state of Nashville, home state of Tennessee. So it's going to be a big moment for her there. I think it makes more sense for her to walk in, as she did last year, into SummerSlam as the champion and not as the challenger. Could they have her beat Carmela and then be cashed in on by Becky or whoever? Yeah, but it's just so fucking lazy, because whoever wins the women's briefcase always cashes in either that night or the next night. Drag it out for a while. So have it be a couple of months, 4, 5, 6 months. Don't do it tomorrow or on the day of or whatever. Drag it out a little bit more. I feel like that's just lazy if they do that. At noob_n_co 1991, their first question was, your thoughts on Forbidden Door? Do you think it was worth the hype, even though the injuries played a factor in the build? Going off what I just said to John, yes, I very much enjoyed the show. Definitely one of the best matches or best shows all year for sure from any company. And was it worth the hype? Yeah. The build going in, I kind of lost some excitement because the injuries played a big part and the build sucked. But sure enough, when it matters most, they delivered. And that's really all that matters most in my opinion. So great show. Hopefully they do it again next year. And they have even more people on the, not more matches, but more bigger names on the card instead of the fucking Nick Camarados and the Factories of the world and people like that. His second question, with all participants in the women's Money in the Bank side full, who is the final participant in the men's Money in the Bank? Will WWE reveal who it is on Friday? Yeah, I feel like we're going to find out on SmackDown, because that spot was always supposed to go to either Ezekiel or Kevin Owens. It's not like they have this ace up their sleeve and it's going to be this mystery person or whatever they'll reveal on Saturday. Could they change their plans and have it be a mystery person? Yeah, but who would that mystery person even be? Are there any other options for the men? I mean, for the women, yeah, it could be a Bayley or a Charlotte, but the women's side is full. Like you said, it would be for the men. I mean, Randy Orton's not coming back anytime soon, so I don't know. I mean, unless they do a last-minute qualifier, which is possible. They will do a qualifier, I assume, on SmackDown, like I said. I feel like hopefully Owens is good to go for SmackDown. They could do the match there. And you're probably thinking, well, Owens is a Raw guy. Why would he be on SmackDown? Ezekiel's a Raw guy. Why would he be on SmackDown? They had a whole bunch of fucking people from SmackDown on Raw this week, and they do it almost every other week. It wasn't just because of the John Cena celebration. They do the crossovers every week now. The brand split is non-existent. Where have you been? You know, I'm not talking to you, New, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I feel like we are still going to get Owens and Ezekiel on Friday. Hopefully Owens' situation wasn't too serious and he'll be back by Friday, but who knows? And we could see him in the match. I think he deserves it. He's probably not winning, but it would make sense for him to be in the match, and he deserves it anyway. Of the two, it would be Owens. If it's not them, I don't really want to see Ezekiel in the match. I love the Ezekiel stuff. He does not need to be in Money in the Bank. Like I said earlier, it would probably just be Kofi or someone like that, some like throwaway person that they have no plans of really doing anything with, and just to be in there for the cool spots. It would probably be Kofi as a last-minute replacement. Ezekiel, no thanks. Kofi would be fine, or Woods, but they have no desire. Woods really wants to be in there, but I don't think he's going to make it in there. Not a chance. So I'm thinking it's going to be Kofi, if not maybe Butcher or something. I doubt it. Or Gunther, like I said, or Ricochet. But again, who really gives a fuck about Ricochet? At least Kofi. Ricochet would be cool, but no one gives a shit about Ricochet. Kofi at least is still over to an extent as part of the New Day, so why not him? But I'm hoping still it's going to be Kevin Owens by beating Ezekiel in a qualifier on Friday's SmackDown. Their next question: what are the current return statuses of Charlotte Flair and Bayley? Bayley might return soon at some point, and as for Charlotte Flair, she might be back in August. I've heard nothing about either woman lately, which is weird. Bayley should have been back months ago, I thought. I honestly thought she'd be back right after WrestleMania, and it's almost July. It's July in 2 days. It is almost exactly 1 year from when she got hurt, and almost exactly 1 year from when she last, appeared on WWE TV, which is crazy. I'm hoping she'll be back very soon. I'm thinking she might be back in time for SummerSlam to face either Bianca at SummerSlam or Ronda Rousey at SummerSlam. Maybe that's what they're holding out for. I don't think she's still hurt unless there were complications with her injury. I feel like we would have heard about that, though. I mean, it took Asuka forever to come back. But I think Bayley, she should be good by now, I would think. So, I don't know. Part of me is just thinking, okay, maybe they're holding her off until after Money in the Bank. I guess we'll find out next week. If she's not back next week, I would be very surprised. So, I'm expecting that she'll be back next week. to set up a match for SummerSlam with either of the top 2 women's champions. It would make sense if it was Bianca, because Bianca, she was supposed to face some Money in the Bank, but they already had like a fucking Hell in a Cell match last year. I don't really want to see that again. Her and Ronda at least would be a fresher match. And it was for the SmackDown Women's Championship that she was supposed to get a title shot for, not the Raw Women's title, so that would make more sense. And SmackDown could use the star power anyway. As for Charlotte, I forgot to mention Charlotte. I don't know when she'll be back. Andrade came back from, they got married in April. Did they get married in, I thought they got married in April. They got married in May. She was on TV in May, so that doesn't make any sense. I think they got married soon after that, and Andrade was back by Double or Nothing. Or maybe she was, I don't know, maybe they did get married in April and she was still on TV. I don't remember. Or no, they did get married in May, because I remember seeing the pictures at that point. I think it was Carmela and Corey that got married in April, and then Alexa Bliss and her fiance Ryan Cabrera. That's what it was. I thought Charlotte may have gotten married in April. But no, she's been gone for about a month and a half now. I really do not want to see her be brought back anytime soon. I guess the division could use her, but to do what? Her and Ronda again? No thanks. So, yeah, I would keep Charlotte off the show for a little while. If she's not itching to come back, just give her the time off. She deserves it. Have her come back after SummerSlam. She doesn't really need to be on the SummerSlam card. So, bring her back when you have a plan for her and she's not just on TV doing nothing. Hopefully it involves something outside of the title picture, but that's just my opinion. So, I haven't heard much on either woman, but I think Bayley will be back sooner than Charlotte, and Charlotte probably in late August, I would have to imagine. In August, because SummerSlam is in late July this year. I wouldn't bring her back before then. I just don't think it's necessary. At Kyle Rochelle 19, their question was, is it time to turn Bianca Belair into a heel? Her as a babyface is so dull, and her feuds with Bayley and Becky Lynch felt like to me that both women carried Bianca. Can there be a double turn with Becky and Bianca? A double turn would be interesting. SummerSlam would be an interesting place to do it, with that being where Becky turned heel last year and she came back and beat Bianca for the championship. And she's down on her luck, and maybe people would really rally behind Becky becoming a babyface again. I wouldn't hate that, because Bianca is a great heel. I just don't know if it's time to go down that route yet. You say she's dull, but listen, she's over. And Sasha, for so many years, again, the same argument could be made with her that she was dull for so many years, but she was over, so why turn her back into a heel? I don't know. I feel like that Raw women's division right now needs more top baby faces, because you already turned Rhea and you have a heel Becky. Again, I guess you could switch the two. It's not a bad idea. It really isn't. And I'm not vehemently against it, but I just don't think it's something we need to have happen right now. I think Becky is a heel. She's only been heel for about a year. Some people don't like it. I think there's still more juice there with her as a heel. Don't turn her back quite yet. And with Bianca, again, I think there's more juice there with her as a babyface. And we need to do her and Rhea first. We need to do her and Rhea first, with Rhea as the heel and Bianca as the babyface. So, as long as we still have that on the table, do not do it. Until then, though, if they want to do it at some point after that, do the double turn soon after, maybe. But for now, I wouldn't do it. At some point down the road, that might be a good idea, though. If only for the storytelling aspect of it from SummerSlam last year, that'd be cool. At the Average Grunt from Twitter, he says, "Hello, Graham. Grunt here with my first question of 2022. Thank you, Grunt, for sending in the question. His question was, once someone, hopefully Cody Rhodes, finally ends Roman's current title reign, would you honestly want to see him win the title again in the future, or should he be done as champion after this run? It's impossible to say. It depends how many more years Roman has left in him, and I don't think he's retiring when he's done as champion. Roman's still on the younger side. He's not 40 yet, I don't think. Even if he was 40, he would have another 10 years left in him. If he continues to wrestle on this schedule as well, he could be here for another 15 years. He's not stopping anytime soon. When this reign is over, would he never hold another world championship again in the remainder of his time with the company? I highly, 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 highly doubt it. I know Cena hasn't held the championship in 5 years. Taker didn't hold the championship since 2010 before he retired in 2020. That's 10 years without a world title. And Roman seems to be working a similar schedule, if not a little bit more dates, obviously, hopefully, than Taker was towards the end. No, I think Roman will be champion again, if only maybe as a babyface. Maybe by that point he's a babyface again. It won't be a 3-year run, I don't think, nor does it need to be. I would only do this once. Otherwise, it takes away from the specialness of it. But no, Roman will be champion again. Because he's a part-timer now, and Cena was a part-timer when he won the championship back in 2017. Granted, he only held it for 2 weeks to break the record, to get number 16, and he hasn't held it since. And there's been reports that Cena doesn't want to break Ric Flair's record. I don't know if Roman would give a fuck about that. I mean, he might just say, hey, give me all the championships. Like, why not? So, who knows? But, yeah, he will be champion again. I would take a extended break with him from the main event scene, though, from the world title picture. When this reign is over, definitely take him out of the title picture for the foreseeable future. Do not go back to him as Universal or WWE champion for a while. Then again, I've said the same thing as, about Brock in the past, and we've seen him as champion a million more times since then, so who the fuck knows. But when this reign is over, what I would personally do, him as champion down the road for sure, like it could be all about the chase again, but I would still hold off on him being in the world title picture, even challenging for another world title for the next year or so, just to give it a bit of a refresher with other people in that spot before you get back to Roman Reigns, which I feel would be inevitable. At E13A, their first question was, is the Dark Order over? As in finished? Probably. Over as in popular? Not really anymore. I mean, they still get decent reactions on some shows, but they're almost never on the main shows, and when they are, they fucking lose. They lose on some of the fucking dark shows, the Max Caster and the Gun Club, or the fucking Wingmen, and people like that. Like, who could possibly care about this group anymore? This question is coming off, as I mentioned earlier, the departure of Alan Five Angels from the company. Likely, I mean, maybe he's sticking around on a per-appearance basis, but Stu Grayson didn't stick around after his contract expired, and we haven't seen him since. I think it's more likely that we just don't see Alan Five Angels again in AEW, but the group's not over. People talk about WWE dragging shit into the ground and running shit into the ground. Dark Order, they've run the shit into the ground. It's been over 3 years. I know they're doing it now to honor Brody, and that's cute and all, but listen, the group at this point is just how much is it really honoring Brody if the group is a bunch of fucking losers? You can have one of them honor Brody on their own, but like John Silver or someone like that, or Evil Uno or whatever. The point of the fact of the matter is this: without that group, a lot of those people would probably be let go. I doubt, Silver and Reynolds would probably stick around as a tag team. Silver has more potential on his own, in my opinion, but they are a great tag team. Preston Vance, number 10, might be doomed, although I think, as I said earlier, he would do well in WWE if they unmasked him and whatever. He can't continue to go around with a mask. He'd be fucked. Evil Uno would probably be fucked, because without Stu Grayson, he's kind of like nothing on his own. No one really gives a fuck about Evil Uno on his own, I don't think. So the group should be over. Is it over? No, and hopefully we get an explanation for what's next for them on the show, because we haven't seen Colt Cabana in months. Hopefully they explain that at some point, and maybe Adam Page is the catalyst for them breaking up or whatever, who knows. But, that's what I would do, because the group at this point serves absolutely zero purpose, aside from just pulling dark duty and filling spots on that show. Emmanuel's second question: where does John Cena rank among your favorite wrestlers? Interesting question. He really doesn't. He wouldn't even be in the top 20. I love Cena now, current Cena and whatever. I didn't really start to get around to liking Cena and being a Cena fan until probably 2015, to be honest with you. Before that, just him being in the main event picture all the time was so fucking annoying. I've never owned a Cena shirt. I've had shirts with Cena on it, but never a full-on Cena shirt, and I own a lot of shirts. I like his current shirt that he's wearing now, though, that he came back with. I really like that shirt and would like that at some point. But, I wouldn't put him anywhere near, the top 20. There's a lot of other people from WWE and beyond that I would put above John Cena as far as my favorite wrestlers. He was not even remotely close to my favorites when I first started watching 13 years ago. Yeah, 14 years ago at this point, which is crazy. I always love seeing Cena come back now. I am a fan of his, but is he among my favorites? No, not at all. Although he was great when I met him and interviewed him, though. He's a very nice person. I've become a bigger fan of him over the years, especially as an actor. I think he's really grown in that respect. As a wrestler, is he one of my favorites now? The answer is still no. Third question from him: do you have any feelings about the existence of the AEW All-Atlantic Championship? I already talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It is a completely pointless championship. It's a cool little token title for Pac, I guess, because the guy's gotten nothing so far in AEW. So good for him. I wasn't bothered when he won instead of Miro or Malachi or whatever. But the championship itself, the idea of it is completely pointless. It really is more a matter of what they do with it. Will it be defended on TV? Will it be a dark title? Will they defend it overseas and increase exposure of AEW over there? who knows? They can have some fun with it. Not saying it will be as valuable as the 24/7 championship within 6 months, but it could be if they do nothing with it. If it's just a fucking prop, then it might be, but time will tell. Last 3 questions from @TheWrestleGuy. Sal from Twitter's first question was, do you think the John Cena stuff was a one-off? They kind of left it up in the air. The direction they would go in, for sure probably, is John Cena versus Theory, but they also didn't make that obvious other than a small interaction. Yeah, I thought it was a one-off. The way that he was talking sounded legit. It sounded genuine. I don't think he's coming back for SummerSlam. Otherwise, I feel like they would have set something up on that show when he came back. I mean, why would he come back? I mean, hey, listen, maybe he shows up on Saturday and he costs Theory the United States Championship and we get Cena in Theory at SummerSlam. There has been no indication that Cena is coming back for another run. Anytime that Cena's come back for another run, we've always heard about it beforehand. We heard about Cena in Wyatt at WrestleMania or Cena and Goldberg or whatever they were setting up for WrestleMania 36. We heard they were setting up, him and Roman for SummerSlam last year. We heard about that. And all the other runs that he had prior to that point. When he came back in 2019, we had a decent idea he was on his way back. So I just don't get the sense that he's going to be back for a full-on run, that it was just a one-off. I haven't heard anything about that. Maybe things will change, but it sounds like he'll be busy for the foreseeable future doing other stuff. But yeah, when he does come back, if it's not for SummerSlam but another pay-per-view, I would definitely do Cena in Theory. I love the interaction between them on Monday. Cena said nothing. He just walked off when Theory went for the selfie. And yeah, you can just build off of that. I just feel like it makes too much sense to not do. And I don't know if it's a WrestleMania match or maybe Theory will hopefully by that point be an even bigger star. But yeah, that's at this point, there's not many people I really want to see Cena come back to fight because he's kind of really faced everyone at this point. But I do think him in Theory would make a lot of sense for a show like a SummerSlam, maybe not this year, or maybe even as early as WrestleMania 39 in April of next year, and then there'd be a great match to do for that show. His second question, I think Seth Rollins is winning Money in the Bank, so I was thinking of a way for him to cash in. I think Drew McIntyre should beat Roman Reigns at Clash of the Castle in the UK, and then Rollins cashes in right after and wins. This would make him such a massive heel, more than he is. What are your thoughts? I didn't really think about that. That's not a bad idea. But here's the thing. I feel like they're going to use the men's briefcase to get out of whatever the fuck they're doing with Roman and Brock at SummerSlam. I really, 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 really do not want Roman or Brock to win that match. I mean, Roman winning obviously is ideal. But the thing is, would they really have Brock lose again? After losing to Roman at WrestleMania? After losing to Bobby Lashley at the Royal Rumble? After losing to Roman at Crown Jewel last year? Brock's kind of a loser. He needs a big win. I mean, Brock will be, Brock Lesnar regardless, obviously. I joke when I say that, but still, him losing to Roman for a third time accomplishes nothing. I know he wouldn't get pinned. It's a last man standing match. I just don't think that's going to happen. Do you have Brock win? And do you have Brock become champion? But then it's like, all right, we get Brock and Drew in the UK, and then Brock would have to lose at some point. He's going to have to, lose another big match. Would he only be champion for a month, only to lose to Drew for a second time? I don't really want... And then he would have to get pinned by Drew, because that's not a stipulation match as of right now. So I don't really want to see that. I feel like they'll use the men's briefcase to have Rollins likely cash in at SummerSlam and become champion there. Does he pin Roman? Does he pin Brock? I don't really want to see him pin either person. That's why Roman and Brock is such a bad idea, because there's no way for it to really make sense as far as who comes out of it as the champion without someone else being damaged by a loss. I really do not want Roman's run to come at the end, to come to an end at the hands of fucking Brock Lesnar at this point. Been there, done that. I don't know what they do. I really don't. I mean, what you said is not a bad idea. And then you can have Rollins as the champion. You can have Drew Chase, and I guess they're on separate shows, so I'm not really sure how that works. But then again, I guess if Rollins is the champion, if he's the unified champion and they don't break the belts back up, then you can just have Rollins appear on Smackdown, I guess, which is what he was doing earlier this year anyway, going into the Royal Rumble. But yeah, I don't even really want to think about it. RJ and I attempted to book it last week on WrestleRant Radio, and my head hurt by the end of it because I can't figure out a logical way. And I don't even know if they fucking know. That's the problem. They booked this show without thinking, okay, what are we doing beyond this? They really don't know. Rollins does not have to win Money in the Bank. I'm just saying that because he likely is. I would rather Sami Zayn win or someone like that. I think that'd be great. Not that Sami Zayn would cash in successfully, but it would be interesting, you know. Maybe Sami Zayn wins the briefcase, he cashes in at SummerSlam instead, and Roman pins him, even though it's a last man standing match, which is also the issue. You know what I mean? But then again, Brock loses again, even though he wouldn't be pinned. So it's a lose situation where none of it really makes sense. We'll see what they have in mind, but what you pitched is not a bad idea. I'm just more concerned with what they do at SummerSlam to get to Roman being champion at Clash of the Castle. And honestly, I would rather have Cody Rhodes be the one to end Roman's reign personally, but it sounds like it's going to end before then, with Brock, Drew, and Seth all waiting in the wings before Cody comes back in early 2023. Last question from Sal, kind of on that same note, on a related note. How do you think WWE can make Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar interesting? After all the matches they've had, what can they do this time to pull in the fans? I know it wasn't their original plan before Randy Orton got hurt. Again, another great question, because I have no fucking clue. Brock and Roman, to me, was interesting this most recent time because the roles were reversed. You had Paul Heyman with Roman and not with Brock, and they played the whole Paul Heyman thing for months, and they did the whole payoff at the Royal Rumble, and the feud died down a little bit going into WrestleMania, but they still, kept my interest for the most part. And then Roman won again at WrestleMania. What more of a story is there to tell with those two people? That's why I said coming out of that show, and I wasn't the only one, if they never do Brock and Roman again, I would never complain. I would not complain about that. Because we've seen the match enough. It's largely not been a great match. They've had some good, but a lot of bad, mediocre matches. The WrestleMania 31 one was kind of the exception. The 38 match was a disappointment for a lot of people. And I can't exactly argue with them on that. And the feud was great, but again, how much of a story can you really tell with Roman being the champion and Brock being the challenger? We already got the story going to WrestleMania. What more can you do with them? They're not going to make it interesting. Maybe they can. Maybe Brock steals Roman's wife or something. I don't know. Not literally steals. Maybe Roman's wife falls in love with Brock. I don't know. I mean, I'm throwing fucking straw. I'm throwing shit at the wall here and see what sticks. I don't know, because there's nothing that comes to mind that would make it interesting. The only thing that would make that match interesting is if Rollins wins at Money in the Bank, wins the briefcase, and announces ahead of time that he's cashing in and it will be a triple threat. That would make it marginally more interesting. The only problem with that is that if Rollins is a heel, then why would he announce his cash-in? He'd be a fucking idiot. He cashed in via surprise last time and it worked out amazingly well. Why would he do anything different than that? If he was a babyface, different question, but they didn't turn Seth Rollins babyface. That's the problem. They kept him heel. And they turned Edgeface instead. It's a mess right now. It's a mess right now on Raw. It's a mess right now in WWE. I don't know where they're going with any of this, and it's very confusing. I don't know how they can make it more interesting. The only thing I would do to make it more interesting, and the last man standing stipulation doesn't even matter, is by adding Seth Rollins beforehand to make the build-up more interesting. We've already heard the promos. We've already seen the interactions. I'm done with that. You have to add someone else to the mix to make this match, to me, somewhat intriguing. Otherwise, because we don't know what the outcome is going to be, I guess that's interesting. But the feud itself does not have my interest whatsoever because we've seen it so many times, and we saw it as recently as 3 or 4 months ago. So what more can they really do? And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 448 of #AskGSM here today for Wednesday, June 29th, 2022. Thank you guys, as always, for your support of the show. I appreciate it. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a question on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not in the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. And yeah, that's about it, guys. Like I said earlier, 2 interviews coming up in the next week. Lacey Evans on Friday here on the channel in video form and in article form over on Bleacher Report. And The Undertaker coming sometime next week here on the channel as well in video form and in article form also on Bleacher Report. I forgot to mention this earlier. This is episode 448. What we did last year, I think it was last year. I mean, every 100 episodes, for episodes 200, 300, 400, I've gone live. I think we did this 2 years ago for episode 350. But I think it'd be cool if we went live in 2 weeks for episode 450. I'm not 100% sold on that yet. I'm not committing to it. I don't know if I'm going to do it. But I think it'd be cool, in addition to doing every 100 episodes live here on the channel, and I can chat with you guys on the chat. And we had a really fun time when we did it last year. And I wanted to do more of it, and I just haven't had the time to do it. But it would be cool if we make it like an every 50 episodes thing as well. So we did it for I think we did it for 350, like I said. I feel like we did. I know I did it on the anniversary of the show, either 2 years ago or last year. I feel like I did. I don't remember that as a fact. But I definitely did go live last year for episode 400. So now that 450 is coming up in 2 weeks. What would that be? July 6th is next Wednesday. That would be July 13th, I think would be that week. So maybe we'll go live for that week. We'll see. I'm not 100% set in stone on that yet, but there's a chance we might be live that Wednesday. So if you're around on, I don't know what time it would be, but if you're around that Wednesday, July 13th, as I said, we might go live for episode 450. So mark your calendars. Hope you're around and hope you can join us. Until then, guys, have a great rest of your week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.